And
We're live. Hey guys, it's Tasha with Wine and Writing. And as you can tell, I have the most wonderful and awesome Rachel Caine here.
hello, everybody.
I should say we, I don't know why I said I, but Nikki, say hi.
Hi. I'm just so excited for Rachel to speak that I'm just like listening like this the whole time.
We've been definitely chatting like girls behind the scenes while we wait for the time to start. It's just been, she's awesome. I'm telling you that. She's so down to earth, so much fun to talk to, and she does love interacting with her fans. Definitely. That's how I actually got to know Rachel, was via Twitter, and I won one of her giveaways a few years ago, and I just would talk to her on Twitter, and she would reply, and I would fangirl, kind of like I'm fangirling now. I just wanted to put that out there.
I love talking to people. I talk to people all the time on Twitter, and I will admit to having sort of an allergy to Facebook. I try, but there's something about Facebook that kind of gives me a migraine. I don't know what it is.
Because it's, not to be mean, it's Facebook. We were actually talking about this earlier. We were trying to get it to where you had to like our page, but I'm like, you know what? It's not our main social media outlet anyways.
Yeah, we're Twitter people.
The rules again. Whatever.
Oh, and we have a hello from Lane. Hi, Lane.
Yes, Lane is one of our faithful watchers. She's been around since the beginning. So hi, Lane again. She's also an aspiring author. So.
Oh, yay. So, Lane, what are you writing? I'm just going to talk to Lane like she's here, because, you know.
Go for it. She is here. She's watching. And see, guys, we told you, we tweeted it, that Rachel will be interacting with all the Q&As here that come on the side in the Google Hangouts. As well, if you want to ask through Twitter, that's fine too. Just use the hashtag WWWriting. So 3 W's, R-I-T-I-N-G.
And you're going to want to ask her questions. This lady is a bestseller with, she just told us before we went live that she's written about 50 books.
Yeah, it actually says 40 on the blog because that's what I took from her website. Now it's 50 because, you know, she's just that good.
Hammering them out, man. I'm just in awe.
I forget to update it is my problem. That's what happens.
What's your nickname that you were telling us earlier?
I apparently people at RT like to call me the Machine.
That's awesome.
Rachel the Machine?
That's flattering and not cyborg-like.
It's awesome, though. And
oh, and Lane says she writes young adult fantasy type things. Yes, I am happy to hear that. I think it's a wonderful area to be in, and honestly, I have such fun when I go to signings. One of the things I love doing signings of all types, and I get all kinds of people, but the young adult fans are so enthusiastic, you guys. They're just so fun. This is a true story. You don't get this, I think, in urban fantasy so much, unless maybe you're George R.R. Martin. But I walked into my first young adult signing in England, and they all spontaneously cheered. And I was like, what is going on? And it was packed full of people. And a guy took his shirt off in line to show me his tattoo of Morganville, which was across his entire back.
oh my God! Wait, was it like the title of the book, or was it like an outline of the town? What was the tattoo?
Totally elaborate. I have pictures of it on my Twitter somewhere, but he had a girl with sunglasses, and in the sunglasses was reflected "Welcome to Morganville" and like a haunted house. And then at the bottom of the tattoo there was a graveyard, and he was putting in gravestones for each of the characters I'd killed.
Holy crap! Wait, no, don't tell me. I don't want to know about who's died yet because I've only read the first one.
His
That is a spoiler.
Yeah, no spoilers, no spoilers. Because I actually, and I posted this on Twitter earlier. I have the entire series of the Weather Warden that I just pulled off my bookshelf, except for the first one because I loaned that to somebody and they never gave it back. So that's kind of sad. So I put Groot on top of it because I have a dancing Groot, and I was like, Groot's protecting the rest. They're not getting away.
And you know, that makes a lot of sense because, of course, the Earth is sort of sentient in the Weather Warden series. Yeah. Although Groot would be trying to kill you in my books. That's how it works.
But I do love the Weather Warden series. That's one of the adult urban fantasies that Rachel's written. I picked it up, God, I don't know, it was just long time ago. It was one of the first urban fantasy books I read, and one of them that hooked me completely into the genre of urban fantasy and inspired me to start writing it too, because I write urban fantasy / women's fic, you know, two totally different genres, but I write them both. And you know, she was one of the, we were talking about this earlier, considered one of the pioneers of urban fantasy, because when she was writing it, nobody really knew what it was. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I published my first book in 1992, which is a little terrifying because a lot of the people I talked to weren't actually born in 1992. But
I was.
We were both alive. It's okay.
I started writing things. First of all, I started writing vampire stories way back in the early 1990s. But then I wanted to write about other sort of magical, supernatural, but real-world things. And at the time, there was not a name for that, and I kept getting rejected on that stuff. In fact, I kept being told, no, you have to write like just a straight thriller, and I tried several times, and I think the closest I got was a book called Copper Moon, which is out of print. Good luck finding it. But I actually still had to put in reincarnation of a murder victim and a dog that got reincarnated, because that was important, and I couldn't do a book without a supernatural element, apparently.
Awesome, though. So, since nobody really knew what it was, how would you define urban fantasy? What would you define, you know, the elements of the genre?
I tend to think of it as a very delicate mixture. It's got to be at least a 50-50 balance of real world and fantasy, because you want to have the real world as real as you can make it. And that's down to, I've got to put gas in my car to get to the supernatural emergency, or oh my gosh, I'm out of laundry and I have to stop the apocalypse and do laundry before I get there. And yet, real life has to be an obstacle to you. It just can't be background. So a lot of the time, it has to interfere with what you're doing, or enable what you're doing. But it has to interact with your magic in a very realistic way. Very
cool. So on that note, there's urban fantasy and paranormal romance. What would you say the difference, like what is the line between the two? Because they're very similar in a lot of aspects.
There's a lot that moves back and forth across that line, and I'm not even sure the line is, I mean, it's more like a section. Mainly the biggest thing is that a paranormal romance audience wants a happy ending. They want to have a happily ever after in some sense. The urban fantasy crowd doesn't necessarily need that, because they're coming at it from a different way. But you can do both. I did hear from somebody once that they were upset because they liked. I think they were reading the Weather Warden series, and they liked the first book, but they didn't like the fact that it didn't end up with the two main characters in love and riding off in the sunset together. And I was like, well, kind of, yes. But it continues in book 2, and she said, no, it has to end happily in every book, which I can't really do in a continuing series.
I don't necessarily even think that has to happen in a regular book, because in real life it's not always a happily ever after, and sometimes that makes the book better by not giving it that happily ever after. It just depends on the circumstances of the book.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variation. I do think that there are some romance readers that really prefer it that way. And there are some, you know, I've gone to science fiction conventions and had people not like urban fantasy because it's got too much romance in it. It's kind of this mixture that you have to like both halves of in order to be happy, I think.
Jean from Twitter, at Jean A. Stunts, she says she has a copy of Copper Moon.
Yay! That's exciting. I have one too, but yes. Not many people do. I think it was my lowest selling book of all time, maybe. I think that it sold maybe 1,000 copies, if that.
I have to find this book. I just want to find it. See if I can find it now.
Oh, and we just got the best compliment ever from Lane, guys. She said, for the record, she chose us over Glee. I think that's a win for the night.
Oh, thanks, Lane.
We can sing for you, Lane.
Well, I mean, Rachel's pretty awesome, so, you know, it's kind of like, yeah, Glee's been around for a few years. Rachel's been around for a few decades writing her books. So, you know, let's go with Rachel. I like her better than Glee.
I hardly ever sing, though, so I'm not sure. And I don't dance, really.
Nikki can sing.
I can sing. In fact, you want me to sing? No.
Yes, that'd be fantastic.
Do it. Okay. Mystery of Edwin Drood. I used to be musical theater, so there you go. Once I was your nan, then I met a man. Tall and all, with golden hair, was where my end began. He let him have his way with me. He knew his way so well. Strolled me down the garden path to hell.
That was awesome!
You're supposed to be like a Cockney brothel keeper, so, you know, there you go.
That was awesome, though. Oh my gosh, Nikki can sing too. I can't carry a tune in a bucket. I'll chase all the viewers away.
I only sing parodies though, so that way if you're laughing at my singing, at least you're laughing about funny stuff anyway. But can you tell us a little bit about that lovely beverage you're drinking?
Oh, yes. So I kind of looked around for something vaguely vampire-ish, and since it was called Vampire's Kiss, I figured it was thematic. It's got Chambord, vodka, and champagne, and approximately equal mixtures. So, yeah, there's virtually nothing in it that isn't going to get you drunk.
And if you guys catch all that, you can go under Book of the Month on our site, whiskeyWineWriting.com. It is under there for Glass Houses, the first book in the Morganville Vampire. That is our Book of the Month. And she actually, Rachel suggested the drink. We asked her if she had any suggestions on what she might like to have for the drink. So, you know, she found it. She gave it to us, and she's loving it. I wish I had the ingredients. I'm going to make that later this week.
I will warn you, since it's a young adult book, perhaps you should just have cranberry juice instead.
Yes, yes. We actually put that on there that the the drinking is for adults. We don't condone underage drinking. We do not condone drinking and driving. Drink responsibly, write creatively. That's our slogan. Drink responsibly, write creatively.
Try not to drink and write either. It's bad.
By the way, Katie Doyle gave you a standing applause for your singing.
Oh my goodness! Thank you, Katie. You obviously haven't been to the theater much, but I love you.
Orville is here too. He says, "I was on Rachel's website. Natasha, you look like the model on the cover of Prince of Shadow." Oh no, I don't. But thank you.
You do actually.
You guys make me blush. My cheeks are going to go as red as my lipstick, which I wore for Eve from the Morganville Vampires because she's one of my favorite characters.
And that was seriously a fantastic book. I couldn't put it down. I read it so fast.
Thank you. I think, you know, that was one of those things where I often get asked how I started writing that series. And I was writing, of course, the Weather Warden series at the time that they said, would you like to write something young adult? My publisher actually asked me if I wanted to. And I said, well, I guess I could. And I was reading young adult at the time. I was reading a lot of Tamara Pierce and Holly Black. And I thought, wow, I don't know what I should do. Well, I've always liked vampires, and I'd written vampires before. So I thought, well, I have to think of something new to do with vampires. So I couldn't think of anything, and I was about to turn down the opportunity completely. I honestly was. And I got on the phone with a friend on the way home from work, and I told her this, and she said, well, that's stupid. You have to do something. So tell me the first thing that pops into your head. And I said, well, the street lights are really far apart. And she said, why? And I said, because if vampires built a town, they would put streetlights really far apart, so you would have farther to run to get to safety. Made total sense to me in the moment. And so she said, well, I've never heard of vampire urban planning. You should probably think more about that. And that is how Morganville came about. And we originally had a contract for 3 books, and before I'd finished book 2, they came back and offered for 6.
Wow.
And then it just kind of kept going in 3-book increments all the way up to 15.
My cousin Erin, she's the one who does all the graphics for our sites, the logo and everything like that. She's been reading the Morganville since she was 18. When she saw you were going to be on the show, she was like, "Wait, what? What?" She's like, "I've been reading her since I was 18." She loves Morganville. She was gushing over it.
And it's awesome. I love it. And I love graphic designers too. So hey, Erin.
I will make sure that she knows that. I'm not sure if she's on or if she's at work still. So she also does freelance stuff. She works for the company and does freelance. The girl is always doing graphic. We every year in October we go over to our local comic shop, Taste Comics, giving you a shout out, and we do 24-hour comic day. And she creates a comic in 24 hours. And I sit there with her because I can't draw, and I just bring the coffee and supply the coffee and hang out.
That's a great idea. We should do like 24-hour book day or something.
I am down for that.
Instead of NaNoWriMo, 24-hour.
24-hour?
They have something like that in Dallas for film. They have the I forget what it's called, but it's like the 24-hour film sprint or something like that, where you literally make a movie in 24 hours.
Awesome.
That is fantastic. Amazing. Katie says, "I love Nikki's reactions to all of Rachel's answers. Doesn't he have the most adorable animated face?"
I told you I have a Muppet face. I can't help it. I'm sorry, guys.
You should have seen her when the way this started was, I don't know if you know, Rachel, was from Pitch Wars, which is a contest to get agents. You go through mentors with published authors, and then they have an agent round and that's how Nikki got agented, because she is agented now. So proud of her. But when she was on live with us when we were announcing she wasn't a regular host then, but she was on with us when we were announcing them, her face got so red, and she was like, and I'm just loving it because she's so cute and so.
I hit my head on the coffee table that night. I don't know if you remember that.
I don't remember that.
I was really excited.
So you just were headbanging the coffee table then in your reactions. That's impressive.
Thank you.
E.L. Wicker's here. She's actually one of my critique partners, and she is fabulous too. She just self-published her book, Fractured Immortal. It's really, really great.
Wonderful. Well, okay, she needs to tweet the link to her book so I can retweet it.
Oh, there you go, Em.
Everybody that's got a book, tweet me links, and I'll retweet them.
There you go. You heard it here. Rachel Caine is willing to retweet your book links. Links. I can't talk. It's okay. I'm gonna stumble over my words. It's okay.
That happens when we have whiskey, wine, and writing.
I normally do whiskey, but lately I've just been on a wine kick. I don't know why.
Oh, I'm on a jug of water kick, so I'm the lame one.
That's impressive jug of water, though, I have to admit.
She was like, "Am I gonna look crazy with this giant jug of water?" I'm like, "No, I have a Bubba jug that I keep my water in, and it's like huge and pink." So, back to the urban fantasy. What actually got you into, like, how did you, as you're a pioneer, how did you wind up falling into the genre of urban fantasy and helping to create this world? Like, what made you want to write it?
At the time that I started writing what would become the Weather Warden book, I had this idea because I'd gone to college in Lubbock, Texas, which is a storm that gets hammered with tornadoes fairly often. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it was the standing joke that starting in about March all the way through August, there's just this little tornado warning weather bug in this corner of your television screen that never goes away.
That's kind of scary.
And I came from El Paso, so I had no familiarity at all with this kind of weather. And for me, the first time one of these storms came through, I was fascinated. And I stood there and I was watching tornadoes in the sky like an idiot because everyone else was in the shelter. And so I just wanted to write this story about someone who had this connection to the weather. But at the time, I didn't quite know how to how to write it in a way that people could accept it. And my first draft of it was kind of magical realism more than anything else, in that she didn't really have control of the weather. The weather was sort of following her around like a puppy. Which I still think is kind of cool and awesome.
That is a cool concept.
But it just didn't fly so well, and especially because she was quite ill, and I did that as a sort of a nod to a friend of mine who was very ill with cystic fibrosis, and I wanted to talk about this kind of relationship, and I kept hearing, well, this is a great concept and we'd love to do it, but it's just too real in some ways. So I talked to him and I said, well, what if I make it a demon mark, and it's something that she's fighting that's like an illness but not an illness. And as soon as I did that, it sold. It was very strange, but you know, there's kind of a fine line between how much real you can put into that concept, I guess.
I really like how you said that with the cystic fibrosis. My sister-in-law had cystic fibrosis, and so yeah, it was just, I can understand where you're coming from with that, because from the time, you know, I was 15, which is when I met my husband, and me and her instantly became like best friends. So we were constantly like going from school to the hospital every day when she was in there, and then she had the double lung transplant when she was 20, and we had to move to Jacksonville, Florida for that. And then so we were there for a while, and then for about 5 years she was good, but then it just kind of went downhill, and she kind of wound up passing away. But, well, not kind of, she did, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I kind of like how you said that and how you added that element and how that inspired you to do that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and he was really pleased too. You know, for him it was very definitely a tribute, even if it didn't quite match up to the circumstance. And so I made sure to mention him in the dedications, and he always got to read them before they were done. So he was a big part of that series for me.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand that. That's amazing how you managed to incorporate that. So, you've actually written a lot of series: The Weather Warden, Outcast, Morganville. Yeah, I mean, and now you have a new one coming out for the first one being Ink and Bone.
Right.
And why don't you go ahead and tell everybody a little bit about that, because it just sounds amazing, so I want it to come from her because she knows about it and I do.
Thank you. The idea is the Great Library at Alexandria, which was at the time the biggest center of knowledge in the world, in the ancient world. In our history, it burned, or it started being destroyed in the time of Julius Caesar, and then it was gone within about 200 years after that. In my world, it never went away. And as part of that, the Great Library has developed so much power, and it has created a system that's kind of like the internet, but driven by magic that they control. And so you go to a library, and they're called Sarah Pam's, which is what the daughter libraries were called in the Great Library. And you pull a book off a shelf, and you request a text, and it will automatically fill the book. Very much like a web page, let's say. But the problem is that there's all kinds of secrets and lies associated with this library. And so I think it's very much bound up in my mind with a lot of the great assets and the great downsides of the internet and the age in which we live of information. So my main character is actually a boy named Jess Brightwell, whose father is a book smuggler. Because we also went all Fahrenheit 451 on this. Books are illegal to own. The library automatically owns all content and all books. So his family smuggles books for a living. And I think that's super fun.
It just sounds amazing. I can't wait for it. And that comes out in the U.S., we know for certain, July 2015. It is available for pre-order on Amazon. And she said they're working on making sure it comes out at the same time in the UK, but we're not quite sure on that one yet, so we don't want to say it will and it won't, but we're hoping for it.
We're hoping. They have, they're working on it now, and if you haven't seen the cover is glorious. I'm so blown away by the cover they did.
It's amazing. It's actually on her site and on our site, and on the ad we did for Rachel as well. That Nikki did. Nikki, by the way, does all the ads and all that wonderful stuff. She is Miss Artistic over there.
Wow, Nikki, you're good.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Absolutely. There we go. I love that face. So we got a couple of comments. EL said that's such a really, I think she meant thoughtful pattern. Such a cool, I'm sorry. That's such a cool thought pattern. Here we go with me mixing up words now. It's okay. And I think that was back to when we were talking about the weather ward and the cystic fibrosis. And don't forget to tweet your book to Rachel. She's going to retweet it for you. So, yes. Lane says the library sounds really cool, and she is definitely interested. And she also says, is anyone here entering Sun versus Snow or Pitch Madness? I probably will, because I'm still hoping. So actually somebody had emailed us asking to do some segments on Sun versus Snow, so we're going to try to get some more information on that, see if we can get some guests from the contest runners and stuff like that, and try to get them on here to talk about what's going on with that for you guys.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, when we say that she's a pioneer, though, for urban fantasy, like, she actually won a Pioneer Award for her work in urban fantasy. I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Romantic Times actually started, I think a few years ago, giving awards for urban fantasy that included a Pioneer Award for people who they felt, really helped kickstart the genre, and I was very fortunate to get one of those, and I feel, I kind of feel very inadequate, because I think that there are so many people who contributed so much to that genre so fast. You look at the amazing work that was done between like 2001, I guess, maybe, or 2000 and 2005 or 6. There's just a ton that slammed out there all at once.
A ton of authors for urban fantasy just came out at that time, and I still read most of them, 99% of them, at least when I can. I have so many backlog books right now, it's crazy. So Diane Joyce on Twitter over here, at Diane, which is spelled DYANNJC, she says, do you write an outline or see where the word takes you when you're planning a novel?
I have to write outlines, and part of that is the discipline necessary to keep the schedule that I have, because on a busy year, I'm writing 4 or 5 novels a year, and they're about 100,000 they're about 100,000 words each. So you're talking about having maybe 3 months to write the book. If you don't know where you're going, it's a lot harder. And plus, a lot of people don't realize this, but the part of the usefulness of a synopsis or outline, however you want to call it, for a publisher is that while you're still working on the book, they are giving that to their sales department, to their cover artists, to their back cover copy people. They're pre-selling on the basis of what you put in the synopsis, which is a good reason not to get too far from it.
That's a good point. I don't really outline. I mean, I guess it's more of a rough synopsis where I'm like, okay, so this is who this is what's going to happen, this is where I want it to go, because then it gives me the option of still figuring out how it's going to get there without being tied down to the specific details of an outline. Because every time I try like a specific detailed outline,
I don't do point by point. I mean, I know people who write 30, 40, 50-page outlines. I do not. I write maybe 5 pages. And that's just kind of the high points of, well, I'm going to do this, and then they're going to go to this place, and then this is going to happen. And I don't put the details of how it happens in or who does what. I just put the sort of the pin in the map of the road. And that way, if I decide to take a side trip, I can, because that helps immensely to lead me back where I need to be to go forward in the plot. Because I think, for me, the hardest part of a book is about 2/3 of the way through. Because that's when I call it the swamp of despair, where I believe that book is never going to be finished ever in the world. And I'm just going to run away and hide. I don't, but I feel like I should.
So we have 3 new questions coming in. The first one is from Katie Doyle over here on the side, and she says, "What are some authors in urban fantasy besides your wonderful self, smiley face, would you recommend reading?"
Oh goodness, there's so many. Well, I think the greatest hits list is pretty rich. I love Jim Butcher. I always have. Harry Dresden is one of my favorite characters ever. Kelly Armstrong. Kelly did something so amazing and so groundbreaking at the time because
The Women of the Otherworld.
Women of the Otherworld. She really did almost an anthology series of characters.
Yeah, she was one of, I think, first people who kind of did first person but kept different characters in the same world all in first person. So each one was a different first person point of view of a different character, but they all interacted with each other, so it was really cool.
Yeah, it was a great concept and very new. Alona Andrews, love Alona, and Gordon. And I mean, Charlene
Harrison, Carrie Vaughn.
Patricia Briggs.
I love Patricia. Oh my gosh.
Nicole.
There's so many out there. It's amazing.
Yeah, oh gosh, Janine Frost.
Mm-hmm.
I could give you a list of about probably 50 authors and still be nowhere near the end. Kim Harrison.
Yes. She's another fantastic one. All these people she's listing, I've read, by the way. They are fantastic. They are great.
Reading more urban fantasy. I'm new. I'm a newbie to this genre.
I love urban fantasy. Like, I've always been an avid reader and writer, but when I hit urban fantasy, it was like I found my stream, and I just went with it. For probably 5 years straight, I read nothing but urban fantasy, trying to catch up on all the series that were out there, because there are so many. Rachel Vincent's another one. Her Alpha series is great.
And Rachel is another one that kind of goes through so many genres. You know, she's in romance, she's in new adult, she's in young adult, she's in urban fantasy. Very diverse writer. I love her stuff.
Yeah, there's just so many out there. If you want, I will make up a list, and I'll post it on whiskeyWineWriting.com of a bunch of urban fantasy writers that you guys can all check out. That's not a problem. And then, let's see.
We just got a really great question from Lane.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of the We Need Diversity movement that's going on lately?
I love it. I really do, because I came from, you know, I'm an old person, let's face it. I was telling these lovely ladies earlier, my first job when I got out of high school was as a punch card operator. You would have to look it up in black and white movies, I think, to find out what a punch card operator was. But I think, and I started reading at a time when, you know, even if a book was set in Africa, you were not going to find any people of color in a book. It was amazing, and horrible. And I even as a child, I thought that was weird. And now, I think it's so great that we're having this discussion and we're thinking about it. And one of the things that I'm doing in Ink and Bone and in the Great Library series is I really wanted to make it an international cast of characters and an international stage. And so there's a lot of that in there. I think it's challenging, and it's going to challenge a lot of writers to go outside their comfort zones, which I think is only a good thing. And if we don't develop as writers and grow as writers, then we should just kind of, you know, give it up, because we're very quickly going to become irrelevant to the conversation.
Diane also asks, and Lane kind of has one that goes along with it, so I kind of just want to combine these questions. So Diane asks, on a good schedule, what is a day like? And Lane asks, how do some of you write so much so fast? I feel like it takes me 10 years to finish a draft.
I understand that, and part of that, I'll answer the second part first a little bit, but part of that's just simple muscle memory that you develop over time. And I always liken it to music, because I was started out a musician, and as you practice, you get faster because you train your body and your mind to not think about the mechanics of what you're doing. And as a writer, you kind of go through that same process where you start training yourself to ignore the mechanics of choosing a word or structuring a sentence. You begin to have an instinct for it and a pacing instinct and all those things. So that helps.
That's awesome. That's really good advice, I think.
I think everybody needs to understand that it's a process of inches. It's patience and practice. We all wish it wasn't, but it is. And then a good day for me is 3,000 words is a pretty good day for me. It's not my best day. It's not my worst day. It's kind of average. I take days off. I do, rarely. But usually it's about...
I was going to say, weren't you just telling us how you were getting yelled at for, you were at a book signing and, you know, you had a lull in people, so you decided to start writing? When are these supposed days off you take?
Part of it was because for the first 15 years that I was published, I still had a full-time day job, and it was a tough full-time day job. I was head of corporate communications for a big international company. So I was usually working a 60, 70-hour week, plus writing as well. And so what I would do is I would get up early in the morning, like the coffee shop opened at 5:30, hooray, and I would go and get my coffee and sit and write until 8:30 when I had to be at the office. So for me, I just got in the habit of, if I had a few minutes, I could turn my brain on, do the writing, turn it off, and go do whatever I needed to do. I didn't have a lot of ramp-up time. And so for me, it's easy for me to do that. I sat next to people who write on their cell phones. I can't do that.
I can't write on my cell phone either, don't feel bad. What did you sleep, 4 hours a night?
I actually only do mornings. Morning.
Yeah, but it sounds like you would get up early, you would write, and then you would go to work and you do work. Not to mention, I'm sure you have stuff to do, you know, around the house and in real life and everything else. So it's like, when do you sleep? That's my question.
Well, she does write about vampires, so.
True. And I do have a time turner. I actually used to sleep about 4.5 to 5 hours a night.
I called it.
Yeah, you did. And luckily, now that I'm full time, I can sleep more like a good solid 6.5, 7 hours. So.
When were you able to transition to full-time author? I feel like a lot of people talk about that online, about how that's the dream. Can you tell us about how you got to that place in your career?
I was terrified to do it, quite honestly. I love paychecks. Paychecks are great because they come in every 2 weeks.
And they make sure your bills are paid.
Yeah, you know, and it's such a security, warm hug of a feeling, and there's health insurance involved and all that good stuff. So for me to actually stop that job and step back was a big thing for me, and quite stepping off a cliff. But part of it was just time, because I was asked to write more books. I knew that I was literally at the end of my rope. You could only do that 4 hours a night for so long with this high-stress job before your body begins to literally eat itself. And I was at that point. And I thought, well, you know, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it now. And I'm glad I did. It was a good decision, good time to do it. And I think my moment of epiphany was I was in a cab going through Times Square on my way to a television interview in New York City. And my boss called me and said, I need you to stop what you're doing and turn around and go back to the office there in New York City and handle this crisis. And I said no and hung up. Because
who was interviewing?
Yeah, because I was not going to have that chance again. And I just said, no, I'm not doing that. That crisis will be there tomorrow. So
for you,
that was a good choice. Now, this is not encouraging you to just go tell off your boss. Make sure you actually have the foundation of your author career before you sit there and you tell your boss no, okay? Because we do want you to be able to have your check and your health insurance. We don't want you to just, like, jump the gun here, okay? That's no bueno.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Yeah, that was kind of the advanced boss level of that game. And plus, my boss had been super supportive of me the entire time. I do not want to diss that company because they knew what I was doing. They were fully aware. They kept coming back to me and saying, no, please don't go yet. We know you need to go. Please don't go because we want you to keep doing this job. And I just got to a point where it just wasn't working anymore for me emotionally or health-wise. And so they were super great about it. And that's what you want. You want to try to find a job where they will kind of be okay with you having weird spaced out moments and writing under your desk occasionally. And
Sherry Howard, who is also a faithful watcher, she's been around since the beginning, at Cher L. Howard. She's fantastic. She's a wonderful lady. She says, better every time. What a fun and informative guest. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
Lane asked a question. How do you accept that you have to shelf a book?
Ooh, good question, because I have shelved books, and I've had books rejected. I still have books rejected. There's never a point in your life where you don't get that rejection, and I think it's a good thing because you shouldn't be able to just do anything you want to do. You should have some reality check to this process. But what I do is I shelve something and I come back to it. I come back to it maybe a year later or 2 years later. I look at it. I say, Often I will say, okay, I see what's wrong with that idea now. How can I take that idea and change it to make it something more interesting? There was one idea that I had for years. I was kicking it around, and it was about, okay, if you drive down the road, and especially this happens, I think, more or less in the South, but you drive down the road, you see these little roadside memorial crosses people cobble together and stick in the side of the road with the tinsels and sometimes the balloons, and I always see those, and I always think that's either amazing or it's incredibly creepy, and I can't figure out which one it is. And I often want to stop and look at them, but I don't. And I always thought, wouldn't it be amazing if you stopped and looked at it and it had your name on it?
Sorry. That was a horrified moment. I was really enjoying that.
How my mind works, people.
I love your mind, okay? I love it. It's just fantastic. Oh my goodness. So speaking of your wonderful, wonderful mind, so for any of you who have read the Morganville Vampire series, there is a web series going on now that I believe, Rachel, didn't you kind of do the fundraising for it?
Yes, I did. We actually did a Kickstarter for Morganville, and it's a digital series or a web series. It's kind of a misnomer these days to call them web series because they end up becoming other things. They end up going to Hulu and Netflix and iTunes and all these digital platforms. But we kickstarted. My readers were amazing, and they came up with about $80,000 in funding. And then we got a partner to match it from Geek and Sundry, which is Felicia Day's company. I don't know if you know who Felicia Day is, but she is an internet legend. And
that is adorable. Oh my God, so cute.
And she helped us out and matched our funds through Geek and Sundry. And so she came on board as a producing partner. We did 6 episodes. We had Amber Benson from Buffy as Amelie. We have Robert Picardo from Star Trek Voyager as Oliver. We've got Ben Easter from Independence Day. We've got all these amazing people in it, and it's so fun. And I get to write all the episodes. And Blake Calhoun, who is an award-winning director in his own right, did our direction. We just had a blast, you guys.
It sounds like, now that I know it's just the first book, I can actually watch it, because I'll admit I haven't watched it yet. You can actually go to RachelCaine.com, and it's right there on the front page. Like, as soon as you go there, bam! So if you've read the first book, go for it. I wouldn't suggest watching it until you read the first book, but of course, you know, we know some of you guys are video people first, so if you're not actually going to read it, you can still watch it. I would suggest reading the book. It's fabulous. And Lane just screamed, Amber Benson! I think that excited her just a little.
She's so good in it. So good anyway.
But that's amazing that you guys were able to come up with the funding and Felicia Day matched it. That's amazing. And I mean, guys, seriously, Felicia Day, she has been in so much. She was in Eureka. She's in Supernatural. And the last time we saw her in Supernatural, I was saying she better come back because she's Felicia Day, and I love her.
Little big head toy now from Supernatural. I saw one.
They have the pop. Wait, because I have Castiel and I have Dean and I have Sam. I can't reach them right now. But well, wait, I can. You're just gonna have to do it.
We're having so much fun here tonight on Whiskey, Wine, and Writing.
See, these are my props, and actually, you can tell how much of a fan I am. I'm also wearing the shirt.
Yes!
I've been watching it since day one. I'm sorry, I'm fangirling again. Rachel has that effect on me.
And I also have been watching day one. We were original. We were OG original fans.
Yes, when I saw the preview for it, I was like, oh my god, I gotta watch this. And then I've been watching it ever since. I know a lot of people fell out after season 5, but I pushed through some of the bad points. I was like, I'm still going. Still going.
And I've loved, so many people. One of the things that I love about watching TV now is so many people came out of this environment that was in the late 80s, early 90s with Buffy and with that crop of new writers that came in and are now such huge showrunners for all the shows that we love now, and I just adore it.
Honestly, I didn't watch Buffy that much. I've seen episodes, but I wasn't like a devout fan of it. But as soon as Supernatural came on, I just fell in love. I was like, I'm done. So, but and that was another thing I wanted to mention about Morganville Vampires. I kind of put on the Book of the Month. I was like, if you're a fan of Lost Boys, you're going to love this.
Yes.
Because it reminded me so much of kind of a spin on modern-day Lost Boys, the movies from the 80s with Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, so many other great actors. It was a great movie, and it's one of my favorites. So when I read that, I was like, oh my god, it's Time of Vampires. I love this already.
It's less mullet.
I'm sorry, it's what?
50% less mullet.
Yes.
That's
But
good.
it's definitely amazing.
So you were telling us that you had a fan with a huge Morganville vampire tattoo on their back, and now your fans have raised the funds for a series. What must that feel like as a writer to know you have such a backing for your baby, your creation?
It's absolutely, it's huge, and in some ways it actually puts more of a burden on you because you really start being so anxious about doing things the way that will do justice to the concept and justice to the people that have had so much faith in you. The tough part is, of course, a typical network show is going to cost, what, $1 million an episode if you're not CSI or Chicago Fire, which is more like $5 million an episode. So the amount of money that we had to work with, I think we did an amazing job, and especially the effects, right? The effects are amazing with it. So I'm very proud of that. Do I wish we could have built the entire glass house from scratch? Oh heck yeah, but we couldn't. Built my house.
I like the way you described it with just the old feel. It felt so awesome. I'm like, why aren't there houses like that around here that I can just go explore? But Diane again is asking a question. She says, "What character, Rachel, would you be in The Guild?" Now I can't say I've ever actually watched that.
Oh, I love The Guild.
I love The Guild. Man, that's tough. Okay, wait. There was a moment where Felicia said, "Oh God, my memory for names is just betraying me." Thanks, cocktail.
Sure, it's the cocktail's fault.
There's one character Felicia says of her, "You have the maternal instincts of a wood chipper."
I think
that would be me. That would be me. Don't ask me to babysit, folks.
Cassie Gilman just said that I've said before that Rachel needs to write an episode for Supernatural.
I think Rachel do you know Cassie, or is that just your awesome interacting with fans?
I love Cassie, and Cassie was a huge backer actually in the Kickstarter, and this on the set, and yeah, absolutely. I'd love to, but you know, writing it.
I'd love to too, because oh my God, that'd be awesome.
I've written. It's funny because I like to write scripts, but it's such a different animal than writing books. So very different. I enjoy both.
Diane said Clara Mama Natrix. I assume that's the guild thing you guys were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, I've never seen the guild, so I'm lost on this one.
She's fun. She has like all these little kids and ditches for World of Warcraft or whatever the game is.
Yes,
I love World of Warcraft. I was an avid player of that.
Kitchen. She has like a pet gate in the kitchen and keeps them all back there. And yeah, it's. I also would be a social services nightmare. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I would not be good like in any sort of official role when it came to being a cop and dealing with, you know, like child molesters and people like that, because they'd never get to court if I was out there dealing with it. I'm just saying.
I am also like that, which is, you know, but I the reason I would be so bad with kids is that I'm so focused on what I do that if I was writing, I'd be like, okay, honey, yeah, I'll come get the scissors as soon as I finish this.
Yes. Well, you know, I mean, with how great your books are, I don't blame you. They need to be written before the scissor incident. So, I like your priorities.
My priorities are don't just, you know, just the kid does not get the scissors and then we're fine.
I actually hadn't picked up any of Rachel's new series in a while since I finished The Weather Warden, and so when she was coming on, I wanted to start reading the Morganville because I'm like, well, we're going to be talking about this. I want to know what the hell I'm talking about. And I picked it up, and then I tweeted her. I go, you know what? Thank you yet again for getting me hooked on another series. And she's like, sorry, not sorry. I'm like, I don't think you're sorry.
Hi to my stock and trade. I'm sorry about that, but what's like people always complain and don't complain at the same time about my cliffhangers because they're awful and mean. But you know, I love cliffhangers.
The one in Morganville was kind of awful and mean because I'm like, do you realize that I'm in like 2 different lit classes, an intro to lit class and a women in film class, and I have a lot of reading to do, okay? And I'm like, how am I supposed to, I'm going to get a B or a C in one of these classes. I refuse to get a D, but a B or a C because I'm reading the Morganville. Thanks, Rachel, thanks.
Yeah, just I'll give you a note for the class, though. So.
That would be the best note to bring to a teacher ever.
Ever. I'd be like, oh my God, Rachel Caine, really? You better know who she is. I know you're all into the classical stuff, but Rachel Caine. Okay. Diane says, how much research goes into a new series? Where do you get the concepts from?
You know, that's there's so much usually because I spend a lot of time immersing myself in a wide variety of things, and depending on the series, right now, well, for the Great Library series, I did a whole lot of, obviously, research about the Great Library, but also about all of the other libraries throughout history that had been destroyed in wars or disasters. There's hundreds of them. It's an amazing story of a massive amount of knowledge the human race has lost over these millennia. So that was part of it. Part of it was just that there's geographical stuff. If you're going to set something in Alexandria, you kind of need to know where the landmarks are. Even if you create new landmarks, you have to know how the streets are and where they lead. I'm doing something right now that's actually much more grounded in the real world and in a Civil War period. So I have to really know a lot about Civil War fashions and the 7 layers of clothes that an upper class lady in the Civil War would wear.
I don't understand how they did that. I don't. I'd have died.
You know, cage crinolines. It's a whole field of study all by itself.
You tried on any of this stuff yourself?
No, but there's actually a museum here in Fort Worth that you can make an appointment, and they actually will go teach you how it all goes on. It's the Fort Worth Civil War Museum, and they have a lady by special appointment who will come and show you all the pieces and help you put them all on, which I'm kind of wanting to do now.
You should totally do that. You should
take pictures because I want to see this.
No, I want film. Let's bring a crew.
Oh yes. Okay, we're going. We're gonna bring a film crew, and we're gonna have like this whole day where we just try to dress up and all this stuff and see how in the world they survived it. Just the clothing alone.
I'll bring them with me.
And there's a reason why, you know, it was a popular thing for ladies to faint. It's just you can't breathe in those corsets. Either the way that they were laced and the way that they tied them. You know, you literally couldn't expand your diaphragm very much. So
Diana says she's sorry to ask so many questions. Don't be. Ask more. We love the questions.
I have a question, and this is backtracking, but I'm just obsessed already. You were talking about you know, the crosses on the side of the road and seeing my name on it. Mm-hmm. Is that an actual book, or is this just an idea you're tossing around? I need to know what happens next.
Okay. Here's the funny part. So I had that idea that I had been kicking around and trying to start and not getting anywhere with. And then out of nowhere, Charlaine Harris contacted me and said, I'm doing this thing called Dark Duets with Christopher Golden, and he asked if there was someone I wanted to write with, and I thought of you.
Christopher Golden is awesome.
I know. And can you imagine getting a phone call from Charlaine Harris and saying, I like you, would you write with me? Yeah.
And all of you guys, all of our viewers, of course you know who Charlaine Harris is, right? Right? I really hope so. I hope so. Just saying. Go ahead.
Oh, and she has a movie coming on Lifetime in 2 days for the Aurora Tea Garden Mysteries. So look for it.
Was that her other series with Harley, or?
No, this one was one of her straight mystery series, kind of mysteries. So it's a brand new thing. But yeah, Charlotte asked me if I had any ideas to start off with, and I said, well, I have this one about these roadside crosses, and I don't know what to do with it. And so we both jumped into that one, and we actually made that the short story in that anthology, which is called Dark Duets.
That's awesome. So actually, we were kind of wondering, so this far in your career, do you still utilize an agent, or do you kind of do this all on your own now?
Oh no, I have an agent, and she's amazing. It's Lucian Diver at the Night Agency, and I've had her for years and years, and just she has such faith in me, but she also knows when to tell me, yeah, that's kind of out there. Which sometimes, bless her, she does. But I love that she always has a way to go with something. You know, even if the idea is not fully formed, she can help me usually bake it into something else. But no, I would always have an agent because I don't like negotiating. I'm not that kind of person where I like to sit at a table and do that kind of thing. I have a film agent to do film stuff, and I have Lucienne to do literary stuff, and I'm happy to stay in the background, really.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's amazing how far you've come from day one. I still want to find the Copper Moon, so if anybody has like a copy they're willing to part with, let me know. Just because I want it.
Oh, and there's also another series which is very hard to find called Devil's Bargain and Devil's Due, and it was a 2-book duology that I did for Harlequin, actually, at a time when I did something that was kind of like Person of Interest, but with 2 women.
Oh, awesome.
And I did it way back, and it just started coming out again in ebook form. Through the UK. I don't know if it's out in the US now through Harlequin, but I was always very excited about that, about these 2 women being told where to be by some unknown agency to prevent crimes or solve crimes.
That's very cool. So you come up with like the greatest concepts. Could you share some of your awesome mind? I'm just saying. There is. I know we basically hit 9 o'clock and we're going a little over, but I did want to mention one thing that we hadn't touched on yet, and that is Rachel wrote the book Prince of Shadows, which is now going to be on the Texas school reading list. Yes. That was selected for that, so congratulations on that, and give us a little bit of a rundown on that before we head out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Prince of Shadows came out in February of 2014, and it was a crazy idea I had based on Twitter. Because Shana McGuire, who's a friend of mine, tweeted out, I want to write a story about Tybalt. And I thought, Tybalt. Oh, that's Romeo and Juliet. She's going to do a villain story of Romeo and Juliet. What a cool idea. And then I thought, but she's already doing it, and I can't do anything with it. And then she said, I mean, Tybalt, my cat. So I went back and reread the play and went, oh yeah, Tybalt doesn't make it through the play, but Benvolio, who is Romeo's cousin, does. And so I sat down to rewrite Romeo and Juliet in the period from the perspective of Benvolio. But it's urban fantasy, and there is magic involved, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on, but it's still true to the play. So I was very proud of it, and it's all in the period and historically as accurate as I could make it.
And now it's on the Texas reading list, so, you know, you definitely did something right. Obviously, over 50 books, massively awesome bestseller, New York Times bestseller, USA Today bestseller. What, like 8 series, I want to say, that you've got?
Probably.
About 8 series. Seriously, and she's, by the way, guys, we did say this before, if you want to tweet your book to Rachel, she will retweet it for you to give it a little bit of exposure.
And tell them about the lovely giveaway, too. She's doing a giveaway with us.
You tell them you started it.
Okay, so we're doing a Rafflecopter giveaway again. If you go to our website, whiskeyWineWriting.com, go to the little doohickey, what's it gonna call it, click the link, and you follow directions, and you get to choose one of the books?
Yes, there's a list of her series and the book she's giving away. She's giving one book away from Reader's Choice, whichever series they want that's listed there. She'll give them away either digital or physical copy, up to them. Reader's Choice.
I wish I could enter our own giveaways. Is that selfish of me?
No, because I would totally do it too, especially since I'm missing Ilwind. I'd be like, Ilwind!
Also, we just got a lovely comment from E.L. Wicker before we go, and she said, I have loved this episode, one of my faves. I'm officially in love with Rachel Caine, mass stalking William Sue.
Thank you. Oh, can I read you one paragraph?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I just want to read you one paragraph so you guys can get the exclusive preview from Ink and Bone. And this is in the first chapter, so there's not really a spoiler. At the next street, he spotted a landmark a few blocks away, the glittering dome of St. Paul's Serapeum, the physical presence of the great library in London and one of the largest daughter libraries in Europe. It was beautiful and it was deadly, and he averted his eyes and made a vow to never, never go that way. But he didn't have a choice.
We should
I can't wait to read this. I can't wait. I can't wait. Just take all my money, give me all your books. We'll be okay.
How big it is, guys. This is how big this book is right here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you have an official word count?
It's like 100 and close to 130,000.
Oh my gosh. So that's like a lot thicker than your other books, definitely. So it's gonna have a lot of awesome in it, a lot more awesome, like double your awesome, double your fun.
First of 3.
Well, if you ever want to, read more, come on anytime and just...
Yes, we would love to have you again. Love having you. You've been amazing.
Yeah, I would actually be happy to do that. If you guys want to do an exclusive reading as we get closer to the release, I'd love to do that.
So you heard it here. She is willing to do an exclusive reading closer to the release of Ink and Bone, which is July of this year. Hopefully it will also be in the UK, but that's definite for US. So we'll figure that out a little bit closer to time if it's going to be at the UK at the same time. So if not, I might have to buy a copy for Em and just send it to her. So.
Well, thank you so much for being on, and I hate to say goodbye, but we actually are a little over the hour. But
yes, we are, but it has been so much fun. Thank you so much. You are absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been super fun, and I love doing this stuff, and I love talking to readers and talking to beautiful, lovely bloggers and interviewers and reviewers and everybody. So anytime you guys want me, I'll be right here.
Awesome.
All right, guys, have a wildly creative night, and we will see you next time. Take care.
All right.